doesn't seem that long ago we were talking hurricane. It's around the corner. In fact, it's Saturday, June 1st. Yes, that's when the season begins. Here's a look at the Atlantic hurricane forecast. Now it is calling for a little bit of an uptick. So it could slightly 14 named storms and making 7 hurricanes. Don't forget, we already have one in the books, Andrea. That was our first named storm. Next on the docket is Barry.
Welcome back, everybody. Glad to be back. It is May 31st, 2019, 10:18 p.m. Yes, a little bit late, but something we need to talk about. We're going to go over a little bit about our upcoming hurricane season, which is, on the East Coast at least, just over 12 hours away. We are 12 hours away from June 1st, 2019, the official beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season, already with one letter down and a second possibly on its way. So, with that said, let's talk about some of this stuff. We're not going to disclude what's going on in the U.S. currently. We can clearly see a system that is already breaking in and moving in from the West Coast. That is from Washington, Oregon, Northern California, Southern California, all the way to the east till you get to central U.S. Another system down in Texas is beginning to brew, which may cause a similar situation to what we've been seeing with our tornado situation. Nonstop, as I said, with partially, if not part of this system, unless this dipped down from Canada, we have some significant straight line, significant storms heading right over the Great Lakes, right through Michigan. And I can only assume that this is going to end up making its way to the Northeast. And then, of course, what we have going on in the semi-southeast states, such as Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, this area, and then out into the ocean is very much active. As you can see, this live lightning going on as we speak. So certainly a lot going on in the U.S. as far as the continent. I will be digging into that. Again, the temperatures can be very confusing as opposed to what type of weather we're dealing with. It seems very mild, very warm, very comfortable, but this does not show you the weather that's going on. Don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful for these warm temperatures. It is about time. We still may have a flux here and there throughout the next couple of weeks as we officially get into those summer months, those warmer months, which are actually kind of concerning me based on the fact that these storms we've been seeing have been ridiculously strong. A confirmed EF tornado in Dayton, Ohio, which must be some sort of record as far as the number of EF4s. We briefly touched on the history of EF5s in the past couple days via live streams, but one thing I want to point out now as we move into hurricane topics here is I want you to take a look at the Tropical Intensity Index. We do look at this chart from time to time to see what parts of our South Caribbean, the Gulf, the Atlantic Ocean, and parts of the Pacific Ocean, just to take a look about the favorability of them producing cyclones, or at least sustaining cyclones if that type of moisture or system moves into it. We can clearly see that the bottom part of the Caribbean, the Southern Caribbean, mid-Caribbean, up by Cancun, and that gap we usually shoot with some hurricanes by Cuba, primed and ready to go. And with that said, I'm going to tie this all together. If you remember from the intro, we have already gone through letter A. That was Andrea. About a few weeks back, we had a little bit of a scare with this, but we kind of knew it was going to bend off into the ocean, not really affect much of the U.S., which was a good thing. The point of this being is that this is multiple years now that we've had either letter A, B, and or C happen before the actual start date of June 1st, and that includes the Atlantic Ocean. Being that June 1st is the start date for the Atlantic Ocean, we tend to see a lot of our hurricanes, if it makes it that far this early in the season, starting around the Gulf area. But then again, you get things like this that kind of brew in this area. This time of year, the atmospheric conditions are just lining up to where you might not see a lot of this because of the Bermuda Atlantic bubble we get here at this time of year. A lot of times we see them coming off the west coast of Africa. They come down and they start following a line like this around that Bermuda bubble that we're going to start seeing. So this will become more and more rare. And then as we get into more of June and mid-June, towards late June, July, we're going to start seeing a lot of action down here. In fact, we're already starting to see it in certain ways. And really quick before I move on, here is our chart that we usually use to base the amount of hurricanes, or on average over time, what we're supposed to expect. Now, if you notice, we go from May all the way to December. January, February, and March are not on this list because it's very, very rare to have hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean during that time. Not that it's not possible, it's just this chart does not register that. Peak season clearly being between September 10th, or at least that week. We've seen things change. This is not a end-all, be-all chart that tells you exactly what's going to happen. This is just based on averages. But we all know September is peak season. After beginning on June 1st, you see a slight decline, or not decline, well, an uprise and then kind of a plateau. And then as we hit mid-July going into August, we start to see things pick up a bit, and so on and so forth. So with that said, this is an overall chart. We do not want to use this to base our conclusions on or anything like that. It's basically just a tool to use to understand what to expect in the upcoming months. So I've shown this chart before. I will show it again. Very important to understand, just like tornado season, May through June, May through July, that's the hot point. But we have had tornadoes in every state of the U.S. multiple times in every month of the year. So these charts are just guidelines. Make sure you guys remember that. Now, with that said, let's move on to what we're seeing right now. As of right now, we have a 20% over the next 2 days of a possible invest forming, not forming. The fact that the letter X is over land right now, it's leading me to believe that this is going to take a little bit to develop. They do have the 48-hour idea here, as in it could possibly form in 48 hours. They're giving it a 20% chance. So chances are it'll take a little longer, if at all, for this system to form. But with that said, all we really got to do is switch over to our 5-day chart, and that ups it to about 30% chance over the next 5 days. Again, crossing over land and then to form in the Gulf gives it a little bit of a an issue, let's put it that way. Once you're crossing land while you're trying to form, if it does make it into this area, like I showed you on the tropical index chart, it is susceptible or capable of turning into a cyclone in this area. Do I think it'll happen? Very hard to say. Now, the reason that I'm saying that is because we can check out a few different models, and a lot of them are saying different things as far as this particular system. Now, we're on tropical tidbits now, and as we move into the next 4 to 5 days, you can kind of see not much goes on. You can see a little bit of a ripple that comes over land here, and we start seeing a little circle, but nothing defining us as a tropical storm or earthquake. Keep in mind, we are using the GFS version right now. And you can see clearly here over the next 5 days, it's not showing much. That does not mean it's not going to happen. It's showing that the possibility of the invest over the next 5 days, even over the next 2 days, is possible, but it's just not showing up here. So let's switch to the GFS model, which actually had invests out in the Pacific Ocean recently, which have since dissipated. But as we move forward in the CMC model, we begin to see why we're starting to see the possibility of an Atlantic issue, and it's showing a little more here over the next 5 days than opposed to looking at the Atlantic as a whole. It almost looks like part of this system that was once a recognized system wants to cross over land here, or possibly cross over land here and then cut across this way just under Cancun and then form in the Gulf. So as we move the ticker forward, we'll go back again. You can see 1, 2 here. These are no longer being noticed as of right now. They're more focused on this part of the Caribbean, the Southern Caribbean, and then up in between Cancun and Colombia. There we go, Colombia. But again, it's going to cross over this landmass. Apparently, at least the energy will, and then expect it to form here. So we'll take a quick look at what that's showing us over the next 5 days. You can see it kind of right there, if that's what it is, or it's going to come from this way. Very hard to tell at this point. We are early in the season. We're not going to get our defined spins, our tight rings around these L's, these low pressure systems, but it does recognize it. So it is there. The chances are there, the possibilities are there, and that's all we can do right now is show what we have as far as the information goes. Now, if we extend out and we use the CMC model to look at the Atlantic Ocean, you kind of see how the CMC is recognizing this 2 to 5 day possible invest that we're talking about. But also what I want to show you, I know, 10 days away, not something to rely on, but certainly something to look at as we're entering that exact part of the season, the first couple weeks in June, and then it's, we go for the ride from then on, and we just follow every bit of data we can. But with that said, here's the CMC version. Once again, these two are not being recognized as possible invests. In fact, as much as 2 hours ago, I saw the X there. It is not there anymore. So chances are they're expecting something to happen here in the South Caribbean. Again, not saying it's going to turn into a hurricane, not trying to scare anyone, but this is what we're seeing right now. So as we move into that 5 day period via the CMC model, we can start to begin to get an idea of why they believe that the energy is going to make its way into the Gulf, whether or not it crosses over the area of Cancun or not, and makes it in there, whether or not it could slip in here and then move to this side. It looks like it wants to hug the west coast of the Gulf. That would include parts of Mexico, but then we're dealing with southern Texas, and then obviously the more southern parts of Texas that dig to the east in the Gulf, and then we got our Gulf states there. But as you can see over the next 5 days, being that it is, the 31st, we can go to the 5th here, you can start to see that low pressure system building up and moving its way into the Gulf here. So regardless of whether this becomes a cyclone type deal or not, if it's showing up in this chart, chances are we got very high clouds involved with it, and it could bring a significant amount of rain to not only places like Houston and the borderlines of Texas. We got Louisiana there, we got Mississippi, Alabama, all these places that have been getting hit pretty hard lately. Just not something we need. And if this is going to continue to be a trend as you look into June 6th, okay, so 6 days away, not out of the realm of possibility, we could be looking at some very severe weather along the coast of Louisiana, especially that tip of Mississippi. And then it looks like it really wants to start jacking itself up as we get into Alabama. So again, we still have some time to analyze this. And then it looks to me like it wants to ride right up the East Coast with a low pressure system deep inside. That's going to be bringing water up and around and then into the East Coast, basically from another direction. But then again, guys, a lot can change in that amount of time. But I want to show you all the different possible outcomes. This is what they expect to happen over the next 2 to 5 days in the Gulf at least. And finally, before I let you go, we are back now on the GFS, and I want to show you something that, yes, is in the future, but looks a lot more promising as far as a developing cyclone than what we've been looking at lately. And again, 10 days away, anything can change, but I'm going to put it out there because the data's there. It's something to look out for. It's something that we can use to go back and compare to. But bottom line is, check this out. So we're at May 28th at the moment. We're going to move at least 10 days into the future. You're going to see the little mess kind of pop up here. Again, the GFS not really picking up much as far as this system over the next 5 days. But once we start getting into the 10-day look, something pretty interesting happens from the southern Gulf here and kind of makes its way up here that looks a little familiar as far as hurricane season comes. So now we're moving into Friday, the 7th of June. Now we're into the 8th. And now the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, and here we go. This low pressure system right here popped out from way below in the Caribbean, and now we could be looking at something a little more serious that's going to involve Cuba, the Keys of Florida, and certainly South Florida if this stays true. I am not forecasting that this is going to happen. I'm showing you that this is what is on the chart now, and it's got that rotation. It's very tight, and it just seems like a cyclone-ish looking type system. We need to remember, land interaction weakens these things. It depends on how long it's over land. It depends on the speed, depends on the temperature of the water, and the atmospheric conditions at the time, including our jet stream. If you guys remember, we always talk about the jet stream during hurricane season, and it is one of the main things that could save or break us as far as the East Coast specifically. So if we have a down dip like this and we have a wall here, a force wall, and at the same time we have a hurricane rolling this way that decides to come up, that wall is going to keep it out into the ocean. If we find some sort of break in the jet stream like we've been seeing recently, that might allow it in there. That's for another day. That's for more once we have something in the water that we are analyzing. Right now, I'm just going into the what if part of it and getting you guys prepared for what's about to come, because you heard it yourself. Mainstream media is now officially saying that they are upticking their official numbers of how this hurricane season is going to go. No surprise there. Especially after what's been going on with the tornado season and just the record-breaking season after season after season we've been having with all sorts of weather. I am not surprised. So, not trying to scare anyone whatsoever, but I would prepare yourself East Coast, Gulf of Mexico, and depending on how the Pacific Ocean wants to act this year, last year it was a Hawaii target zone. We had a few that came up and made it just past the Baja region towards California, which is rare in itself. So we have a lot to look out for, guys, especially when the rules of weather are being broken and things are just not normal. So that is why I make these kind of videos, and that is why I'm going to continue to do so. So, again, the CMC and the GFS model, not so much in agreement right now about when things are going to happen, but they're pretty much agreeing that there's going to be something going on within the next 2 weeks when it comes to Florida, Cuba, the Keys, so on and so forth. So, and, all right, well, that's the 5-day one. The GFS or CMC is not letting me go up past that date. June 10th, you would see this low pressure system in the 11th, 12th, and 13th start making it up this way. We will see that in the near future. But once you start seeing these systems leaving the northeast of the U.S., and then they start to really, really explode here and then get to our friends in Ireland and places like that, we know we are entering hurricane season, especially with the Bermuda Atlantic bubble beginning to form here. Everything's going to wrap around it with the rare occasion of something coming through it. You know, we got our Fujiwara effect we're going to bring back into the vocabulary. A lot going on, guys. So I just wanted to get on here, get you a nice intro in there, and let you know that we are still following this as close as possible. And also, don't get me wrong, guys. I'm all over the severe weather in the United States, including the tornado warnings. A little bit more quiet today for once. Thank God. We can finally say that we have a little bit of a break. But again, guys, you got to understand these yellow areas right here, these are severe thunderstorm areas and still capable of producing tornadoes, okay? So we need to be on our heels, at least from Texas going straight up the middle of the country, and basically everything to the east of that has been the common denominator when it comes to where these tornadoes have been happening. Of course, we've had some to the west in Colorado. We've had tornadoes in places we are very, very much not used to seeing them. A lot of marine statements going on. So we're just in that exact area where we're switching over from like spring into, pre-summer and then summer, and then hopefully the tornadoes will die down, but that does not mean that the overall weather systems in the U.S. are going to die down. If not, in my opinion, they're going to get stronger. The atmospheric energy we have over us right now is just absolutely incredible. The jet stream is doing things that we've never seen before, so it's going to be an interesting few months, if not longer. So, all right, I think I've let this one go long enough. I want to get an actual video out. I want to do a live stream later on tonight, if possible, because I know you guys are very much enjoying those, as am I. It's a lot easier to get info out quicker, but this was more of a recap and a review of what to expect for this year. So once again, guys, peak season, September 10th, has not changed that much. In my opinion, if we were going to change any part of the hurricane season, I would start it a little bit earlier, and I would keep the end date the same, even though we've seen hurricanes after the end date of November 30th. But if this trend of storms, named storms, continues before the date of June 1st, I can't see how they will not jack over this side of the chart and maybe even move it into parts of April and at least have April on this map. But that's not my decision quite yet. Maybe one day we'll get there where we can have some say over what we see here online. But once again, going down to the Pacific Ocean, no invest expected. There was one here before, no longer there for the 48-hour period. And once again, we have our East Coast, especially, let's see, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Coastlines getting lit up hard. Probably coastal stuff going on here. I'm going to look into this more. It might be a separate video, but this is a lot of lightning, guys. A lot of energy here. And then we get these straight dips over the Great Lakes, filling them up once again. Mississippi River completely overflowing its banks, breaking a levee recently. It's complete chaos along the Mississippi River due to these tornadoes. People's lives ruined, you name it. So, all right, guys, enough rambling for me. I got my point across. I hope everybody is well, and thank you so much for the well wishes to me and Caroline. The other night when we had to cut that live stream short, it got pretty serious over here in Northeast PA. And I don't know if I said this earlier, but the Dayton, Ohio tornado, I believe, has been upgraded to an EF4, one of the biggest tornadoes we've seen in a long time. And also the tornado that was in Pennsylvania a couple days ago is considered to be an EF3. That's one of the bigger ones to hit Pennsylvania in a long time. So, guys, thank you so much. You are the best subs YouTube can ask for. I will be back later on tonight. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, share, and sub. Click that bell until you see 2 quote lines on the sides of it, and you will get every one of our notifications. And please check out TypeX channel. She's been posting more and more material. Lots of cool stuff, guys. We have some pretty interesting paranormal stuff going on her channel, and we're going to start pushing that to you guys. We've been getting some crazy pictures lately. A lot of cool stuff. So, all right, with that said, I am done rambling. Thank you guys so much again. We will talk very soon. Take care. Have a great night. Bye-bye.